It was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Can't be
forward.
like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
Hi, my name is Joe Mennel. I'm co-producer of Street Talk.
My name is Mark Hayward. I'm the editor of Maverick Citizen, but I'm also a social justice and human rights activist.
My name is Ayanda Mtetwa, and I'm currently a journalist for the Daily Maverick.
My name is Sandisiwe Shoba. I'm also a journalist for the Daily Maverick.
So, Sandisiwe, can Cyril survive? Can we believe in him?
I mean, personally, I do. I still believe in Cyril, but the circumstances don't seem to be in his favor. It seems to me that as much as there's a heart for him to try and rectify the issues that are in the ANC, a heart to get rid of corruption, there's so many forces in terms of the evil and the rot that exists in the ANC that I don't know how much he can do to push against it to ensure that that is eradicated at the end of the day. So in summary, I think the ANC is bigger than Cyril.
I think I have to agree with Sandisiwe when she says that the ANC is bigger than Cyril, because if we look at the attempts that he's been making to eradicate corruption in the party, and more so to eradicate corruption in government, he has been confronted with a lot of hurdles. He's been confronted with a party that refuses to self-correct, a party that refuses to self-reflect, on some of, in ways that they've handled themselves in the past in terms of, service delivery beyond corruption. I think corruption is one big part of the mess-ups of the ruling party, which is the ANC. But if we look at service delivery, if we look at how things are in our schools, in the education system, in the health system, it is an utterly, a reflection of some of the failures that exist in government.
I hope that Sandisiwe and Ayanda are wrong, and that if we look at the choices that we have in this country now, I'd rather have a President Cyril Ramaphosa than the leader of any of the other political parties that present us with choices, or with another leader of another faction within the ANC. So, I come from a perspective where I think I'm probably one of the greatest critics of President Ramaphosa for reasons my colleagues have both given. I don't think he's doing enough for poor people in this country. But having said that, if I look at presidents around the world, probably Ramaphosa is one of the best at the moment, because at least he is a constitutionalist, an avowed constitutionalist, and at least he is relatively accessible to the people. So what I say is that we have to create, as the people, a counter pressure for justice and fairness and so on, and the pressure that is stronger than the pressures that you are asking about that are coming from corrupt and criminal factions inside and outside the ANC.
You're a president in name, but in real terms, you've got a cabinet, you've got a national executive, you have branches. How much is he able to do that or is he just not doing it that he could be? What do you think?
So far as I understand kind of the power that Cyril can hold, I understand it as he's still kind of beholden to the ANC's National Executive Committee. And insofar as that, he can only make decisions so far where he cannot overpower or overrule them. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's quite interesting, though, the recent decision that was made that anyone who's facing corruption charges or anything of that sort has to either step down from their position in the party or within government, etc., which is a huge thing, to kind of call people out and say, hey, you've done wrong, there needs to be some level of consequence to that. whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know if I'm seeing much of it. Recently, I know the head of the Parliamentary Committee for Home Affairs, Bongani Bongo, he kind of vanished, or he wasn't present for a lot of the meetings. It wasn't made explicit that he'd stepped down because of those reasons. But I mean, he was facing corruption charges to do with the state capture inquiry into ESCOM. So, I mean, little by little, I feel like things are being done, but personally, I still feel like a whole lot more further measures need to be taken to combat the extent of rot that exists not only in the ANC, but just in government structures within our country. I think for Cyril, he needs to get his hands really dirty in terms of weeding out those who continue to disregard our constitution, who continue to disregard our democracy, and continue to place the poor in an even more compromised position. So if those who are corrupt are willing to defend corruption and defend their positions of evil, then I feel like Cyril needs to step up and get even dirtier in terms of defending what's right and defending the integrity of our country.
For me, it's a matter of looking at the fact that Cyril's power is very much vested or is very linked to the fact that he is the leader of the ruling party, right? And I think we need to be honest about the fact that he wouldn't be president of this country if we didn't have the Nasrec conference. And I think we also need to be honest about the fact that he had to do a lot of campaigning. He had to do a lot of convincing people who might have been part of other factions within the ANC to come and be part of his, faction, to convince them to vote him into the position of president of the party. So I think it's complex in the sense that his power is there, but his power doesn't necessarily belong to him. And that's just a personal opinion that I have, to say that even though he might make commitments to say that we will deal with corruption, we will make things different in our country, we need to be honest about the fact that his position was influenced by other people in order for him to get to where he is today. So it's sort of a thing of thinking of the fact that he has to be very cautious not to step on other people's toes when he deals with the corruption. And I think that's one of the reasons why we are here today, questioning his position, questioning whether he has power, questioning whether can he survive, as the president.
I agree, except that I think that Amanda says he must be careful not to tread on people's toes. I think he should be stamping on people's toes and calling their bluff in many ways. And I think that he should be calling out people like Ace Magashule and others who have so much prima facie evidence of their corruption, and joining the dots between that corruption and the misery in which people find themselves.
The disappointment that people feel now that, this ANC that they had so much hope and trust in has let them down, especially post the Zuma era. Yes, Cyril has a lot of expectations on him. So I do feel that he needs to step up, he needs to act.
And I do think that quite a lot has happened to clean up the state. And when the rot was so deep as it was, and it wasn't just the rot of the Zuma years, I have to say people like Thabo Mbeki didn't help us either. And we did inherit a terrible legacy of state dysfunction. But I think that there are hopeful signs on the political front. I can give him, a few gold stars. But when it comes to the social and economic front, that's where I can't at the moment. And that's where I think he's going to be the downfall if he doesn't address it sometime soon, which is why, taking from what's been said so far, the lesson people should take listening to this type of thing is don't trust any politician and don't trust Cyril either. Don't be observers of politics, be actors of politics. There is sabotage going on. People have to report sabotage that they see. People have to be vigilant. They have to watch what is happening in our society. We're a country where we have a lot of power because of the constitution. We must use that power whilst we still have it, because I can tell you that across the border in Zimbabwe or across the ocean in India, people don't have the power that we have. So we've got to use this power. We're not neutral in this. We are actors in this.
Well, actors, we have the power of a vote. That is the one, you know, and if people would only exercise that power more, then really we could enforce that kind of change. But my worry is a lot, particularly the younger people in our country are so disillusioned and cynical at this stage that they kind of believe that the vote doesn't count.
It's not necessarily that the vote itself doesn't count. It's that who is that vote going to? What is that vote going towards? Because, yeah, for me as a young person, it is concerning when I am behind the booth and I'm supposed to choose who I'm supposed to vote for. Either I'm overwhelmed by the number of choices that I have, because the last election I was like, this page is not fitting on the table. How am I supposed to make a decision? You try to read manifestos, you try to educate yourself. But of course, the default is that you're going to go for one of the big three. You're going to go for either the ANC, you're going to go for the DA, or you're going to go for the EFF. But all three, I'm exceptionally concerned. Here's the ANC, who are basically the custodians of corruption. There's the EFF, who some are calling anarchists and completely violent. And then you've got the DA, who there are concerns about their stance and position on race and, you know, the economic policies and things of that sort. And you sit there and you're like, who represents me, first of all? Secondly, who can I trust? So I can understand why there is such a hesitancy to vote from a lot of young people. I had a lot of friends who were like, I'm not doing this. I'm not bothering to vote. It means absolutely nothing. Not necessarily in that my voice or my vote doesn't count, but there's no one who I'm giving my vote to that is worth giving my vote to.
I think you eventually fall for the trap of having to vote, you know, for the top three political parties that we have in the country. And I think that's why the Constitutional Court judgment on the unconstitutionality of the Electoral Act is such a big deal. And I think we might have not made a lot of noise about it as I would have, you know, maybe liked that we do, you know, in terms of the fact that it's such a huge game changer. I imagine in my head having Lindiwe Mazibuko, who's a former DA member, running for presidency. She's young, she's a Black woman. And I think that's where we should be looking towards having independent candidates that we identify with as young people. And also, I really liked what Mark mentioned in terms of active citizenship. And I think we have seen that in the outrage with a lot of the scandals that have dominated the country over the past few months. I think we should be directing the anger towards taking action. I think that should be the next step, you know, in terms of we should be angry, yes, but what do we do with the anger?
I have the same dream that I've always had since I was a kid, which is a country where there is equality and justice, and where all people have dignity in their lives. It's a simple thing.
My dream is also to see not just equality, but equal opportunity for each person to be able to create the life that they've always wanted to create.
My dream is to live in a country where there's equal opportunities, just like my colleagues have said. But most importantly is to live in a country where we don't have to deal with issues like gender-based violence, because that has been something women and children particularly have been faced with violence directed at them mainly from men. So I think that would be one dream I pray one day could come to pass.